Welcome, today's story is full of drama. Like and subscribe to stay updated. Let's get started.
Kelsey Donovan slid into the booth next to the man. It was hard to tell who he was, but I knew he was someone she recognized. The way they were interacting made that clear. What I knew for sure was that I wasn't the one sharing those moments. Who am I? I'm her husband, and am watching them from across the dimly lit bar, seated in a booth diagonally opposite. My stomach churned. I was supposed to be out of town until the following Wednesday, 10 days from now, but a tip from a female colleague of my wife had alerted me that she wasn't the person I thought she was. So I canceled my trip to Chicago and decided to follow her to find out the truth. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. 17 years of marriage, and here I was watching her with some other guy. Betrayed by my own wife. My anger, disgust, and heartbreak mixed into a surge of determination. I wasn't going to let this stand. I would come out on top. But in the back of my mind, I knew it wouldn't be easy to confront her. I'd spent so many years with her, shared our lives, our moments. The emotional and psychological investment was immense. I needed to understand why this was happening. Was there any chance at all to save our marriage? Here I was, teetering on the edge of divorce. Probably no amount of wishing would change the reality. Even if I wanted to salvage it, I had no idea what she would do or what she wanted. The sickness in my stomach deepened. I got up and made my way to the men's room. At least I could throw up there. Thankfully, it wasn't in the car. But as bad as my stomach felt, my heart hurt even more. There's nothing more painful than the betrayal of trust by the person you love. Nothing. I had been married to Kelsey for nearly 20 years. 17 is close enough. I was 48 and she was 47. We had both been married before, but neither of those marriages had produced any children. Our girls, Amanda and Lisa, had come to us near the end of our first year of marriage. They'd been a bit of a surprise, but a lovely one. The girls I knew had been our anchor, and we, Kelsey and I, adored them. Because of them, and for any of a dozen other reasons, it had been my apparently erroneous conviction that our marriage was one of the good statistics. Well, it looked like that, in the final analysis, was not to be the case. At least not for much longer. Returning from the head, I passed right next to their table, within 3 feet of them, for Christ's sake. I looked straight at them as I passed, virtually daring them to see me. But they didn't recognize me, engrossed as they were with each other. I, at that point, didn't give a damn one way or the other. I did get a good look at the man, though. It was Brian Weston, her boss at the marketing firm she worked for. Good old BW, as she usually referred to him. Outside in the parking lot, I took a deep breath. My Okinawan martial arts training worked for me now. The deep, controlled breathing is integral to the martial arts. It is from the center of our being that the key, our inner power and serenity of mind, proceeds. Proper breathing allows the individual to tap into this power, this serenity. I know that sounds very unscientific, but it works. I felt a ton better. I guess it's time I said something about myself. I'm 59. I used to be 510, but somewhere along the way I lost an inch and I don't know why. I weigh in at about 175, and most of that is steel hard muscle. My feet have slowed some over the years. Okay, a lot, but not my hands. Just 2 things are faster than my hands. One of them is like the other, and scientists haven't come up with a name for it yet. As for my face, well, it's kind of messed up. But Kelsey always said I looked rugged. Till now, I had cheerfully accepted her version of the facts. I had taken up martial arts to stay in shape after my boxing career ended 22 years back. Kelsey knew I'd been a boxer before we met but had never shown any interest in hearing about it. Apart from the simple fact that it was true, since I had quit the ring more than 3 years before we met, it never came up in conversation. As a prize fighter, my record had not been sterling, 10-38. 2 of those losses, though, had been against ranked opponents. I was the guy they came to for their tune-ups. I had been a natural welterweight, but the tune-ups had been against middleweights. Both of the ranked guys had damn near killed me, but I had not gone down in either fight, and that had been my goal, just to go the distance and stay upright. I'd done that. Now at my age, I am the inevitable middleweight. Well, what are you going to do? I'm older now. I am, nevertheless, as I said, in pretty damn good shape. At the moment, I was thinking of how many ways I could take my aggressions out on Mr. Weston. The man was at least 63 and maybe 245, so that would make the fight fair, right? As for what I do now to earn a living, I'm a logistics engineer for a freight line, trucks, not boats or trains. It's my job to see to it that materials and cargo get to where they are going as fast as possible and at as little cost and loss of product as possible. The job pays well, $130,000, and the bonuses can be substantial. It wasn't money that was luring my wife into Mr. Weston's arms. I knew I made more than him. It had to be something else. Maybe his size. My small tool had always been an embarrassment to me. But what is, as you might say. Kelsey always said it was enough for her. Regardless, I wanted to believe her. I had a thought. I pulled out my cell. It was a camera as well as a phone, and it had a 2-power zoom. I was going to get some pictures if I could. I was no private eye, but it seemed pretty straightforward to me. Get them coming out, get them wherever it was they finally ended up going, and then wait and confront her. First her. Then the a-hole. In that order. I'm not sure when it came to me, but at some point in all of this I made the conscious decision to be cold and efficient rather than emotional and belligerent. I needed to gather evidence. I realized that I was going to need proof of her infidelity when I divorced her. If I did. In fact, I had also decided that I was going to do my level best to ruin her a-hole lover in the process. And that, whether or not I did, I began planning at that very moment. The only sticky part in my conversation with myself was how I was going to deal with the issue of telling our twin teenage daughters, Amanda and Lisa, why I was leaving their mother. I did not relish that little ditty. I slipped back into the bar, doing my best to not be noticed. I got close enough to get a couple of pics, albeit in bad light, of the two of them playing around. I got out of there as soon as I had accomplished that goal. I knew I'd have to have the photos enhanced since I didn't use the flash, but I knew that Danny could do that job for me as soon as I could get hold of him. Danny was an old friend, the geek of computer geeks. The tech stuff had not been invented that he couldn't manipulate like a 13th Olympian deity. The parking lot was a bit lighter than the bar, and she had parked near the entrance, right under a light post. It was bright as day. I could get pics of them when they came out for sure. Maybe an hour later, I saw Kelsey and Brian coming out of the bar. They stopped in the shadows and shared a lingering kiss. From behind a dumpster, 20 feet away, I was able to get a shot of it, and reviewing it immediately, I was gratified to see that I had gotten a good, clear picture. Both of their faces were recognizable. They held hands as they went to their respective cars. His was parked next to hers, as it turned out. How convenient, I thought. I wasn't actually due home for another 9 days, so I got myself a motel room less than 3 miles from her house. I settled in and tried to figure out what my next move would be. I needed the answers to a bunch of questions. Why had she decided to screw around on me? Was she planning to divorce me? She and the a-hole obviously were not new at this, but how long had it actually been going on? Was she doing other men? I doubted this last one. Their kiss told me that there was something more there than just sex. It looked like they were in love. Okay, I said to myself. What to do? I could hire an investigator. I could afford it. Or I could continue to do the sleuthing myself. I wasn't stupid, but I was inexperienced. A PI would have equipment and other stuff to stick it to the two cheaters. Also, there was the fact that Mr. Weston was married with 4 children. And if I had understood the things that my wife had told me about him, his wife was the one with all the money in the family. And that fact was most interesting. I knew that Kelsey would be at work the next day until 5 p.m. I had time to get my act together, but not too much time. By morning, I had decided on a PI. The internet was my next stop. I chose one that claimed to have been in service in the area for the past 20 years. Nothing like experience. I made the appointment for that same morning. I sat across from Mr. Grant, a man in his mid-50s. There was actually a cigar in the ashtray in front of him, and his shabby office looked like something right out of a Raymond Chandler novel. I thought this guy only needed a trench coat to give Bogart a run for his money. And that's it then? Said Mr. Grant. Yeah, pretty much. I just got in yesterday and caught them last night. There is definitely something going on, and I need the proof. So what do you think? Can you do it? I said. Sure. No problem, he said. With what you've given me, the pics and the rest, it'll be easy. It'd be easy for you too if you wanted to do it yourself. I'm just afraid I'd screw up, you know? Maybe give the guy a size 12 suppository and get my butt thrown in jail. I don't want to give either of them the satisfaction of seeing me behind bars. So that is indeed it then. Well, be on the job immediately. I will be planting the devices in the house today while she's at work, said Mr. Grant. Good, I said. We shook hands, and I went back to my motel room to wait and consider what exactly I was going to do with my wife. I had made up my mind not to do too much until I got the report from the PI. If he confirmed what I already knew to be fact, then I had just about decided to come down on her with both feet. I wanted custody, the house, as much of our money as I could squeeze out of an overly forgiving court system. And I wanted revenge. She could have the a-hole. And I just couldn't wait until life with him lost its new car smell and she realized what it was Shed lost. Well, anyway, that's what I hoped would happen. Mr. Grant had made it clear that I was to stay clear of the both of them for the duration being the entire week if necessary. But that did not mean I couldn't call the traitor. I always called her every day I was out of town. It would have raised her suspicions if I did not call her. The phone rang in her office. She answered it. Hi. Yeah, it's me. It's fine here. Uh-huh. Me too. But we'll be together this weekend unless something unfortunate happens. Okay, so what are you going to do to not be bored? Sounds good. Emily is a fun gal. Oh, okay. Okay. Didn't mean to interrupt your meeting with BW. Yeah, me too. Give Brian my apologies for interrupting the meeting. I hung up. I had actually caught them in a meeting of some kind. Well, it was a business establishment after all. It might even have been legit. Still, images of her bent over her desk getting banged from the rear crowded out all others in my mind. Her voice had betrayed nothing. Well, why should it have? I was in Chicago, 1,000 miles away from Denver as far as she was concerned. I could just imagine the two of them smirking at my timing. The thought pissed me off. Kelsey's side of the story. Kelsey had noticed a guy watching them from across the barroom, but it was too dark to see who. Who cared anyway, she thought. She was having fun with her man. She was feeling a little bit guilty, though. Marcus was away and she intended to be with Brian, even if it was technically cheating. But it was only a technical thing, she told herself. Marcus would suffer not at all for her doing it, at least not while they were still married. She'd treat him good right up to the end. She was planning on divorcing him as soon as the girls turned 18 in 5 months. And then he'd be free to find someone he could be happy with. She really did wish that for him. For herself? She was in love again, just not with her husband. Not since high school had she felt about a boy or man like she did about Brian. True, Brian could not provide the kind of living that Marcus had provided for her. But she'd get enough from the divorce settlement to make up a lot of the difference. Still, she had to be careful. This was not a no-fault state. If caught in adultery, she could be ruined financially. Hence, she never did anything with Brian unless her husband was out of town. What he didn't know would hurt no one, she reasoned. She did feel some regret for what she planned to do to her husband. He had been a good man in all respects except for 2 things. 1, he was lousy in bed. And his skinny little weenie no longer satisfied her. Not since she'd experienced Brian's very big one. And 2, Marcus was boring. Let's get out of here, Kelsey. I need to get you naked, said Brian. She smiled at him. Happy to oblige, she said, rising. He threw a bill on the table and they left. Once outside the door, he drew her to him and they kissed in the shadowy light of the bistro. They strolled arm in arm the few yards to their cars. My house, she said. We've got that meeting in the morning and I am going to have to limit you tonight. Unlike you, I have to be in early for the setup. I know, he laughed. In the boss, remember? They laughed. They drove off, not noticing the man half hidden in the darkness near the dumpster. Kelsey parked her car in the driveway and went into the house. She turned on the porch light for her lover and left the door ajar. Kelsey had given the girls permission to sleep over at Rachel's and that had fit in well with her plans for the evening. She and Brian could do the bedroom mambo and she could then run him off early enough to get the rest she knew she was going to need. Jess, who was that parking in front of the neighbor's house? Said Lisa. How do I know? Wait, that's Mom's boss. That Brian guy, said Amanda as the big man got out of his car and, casually, as though expected, entered the house. I don't like the look of that, said Lisa. What is that man doing in our house this late at night? It's after 11. We going to go in? Said Amanda. I gotta get my clothes for tomorrow, don't I? I mean, if we're all going to the water park in the morning, said Lisa. It's your fault anyway. You should have told me about the plans to go there before we left today for Rachel's. Yeah. Blame it all on me, said her twin. It's our house. Why shouldn't we go in to get my stuff? Said Lisa. Mandy, I have a bad feeling about this, said Amanda, starting to tear up. Me too, Jess. But Mom wouldn't cheat on Dad, would she? God, I hope not, said Amanda. As Amanda and Lisa sat in the car across the street, the porch light on their house went out. They waited some minutes before they began to worry. The man apparently wasn't coming out. "We got to get in there and get my clothes," said Lisa. "And I'm afraid," said Amanda. "Wait, I know, I'll call Mom on the cell. Tell her we're coming to get your stuff." Lisa smiled. "Yes, that'll work. And we can pull up alongside her car just as she answers the phone. That way, she won't be tempted to tell us that we should come over in the morning to get them instead." "Hi, Mom. Me and Lisa. Yes, we're having fun at Rachel's." No. We'll be gone all day tomorrow." "Yes. The water park. We need some stuff." We'll be there in 1 minute. We'll just run in and run out." No, we're pulling into the driveway right now." Amanda hung up. Their mother met them at the door. "Hurry up, girls, and get what you need. I need to get to bed. I have a big meeting tomorrow. I hope you two are behaving yourselves over at Rachel's." "We are, Mom. You'll get my suit and a couple of other things, and we'll be out of your hair," said Lisa. Amanda waited by the door while Lisa ran upstairs to her room. Lisa noticed that the door to her mom and dad's room was closed. That, coupled with the fact that their mother was already in her robe, was telling. Lisa got her stuff and ran down the stairs. "Bye, Mom," said the twins in concert as they rushed out the door. "Have fun tomorrow, girls," said their mother. The girls waved as they got in their car, backed out of the driveway, and drove down the street toward their friend's house, where they were sleeping over. "Lisa," said Amanda, "that a-hole is in her and Dad's room." Kelsey Donovan turned and uttered an audible sigh of relief as her two daughters drove off. She leaned back against the door jamb and took a couple of deep breaths. She climbed the stairs to the bedroom, where her lover was already naked and waiting. "That didn't take long," he said, reaching to take her in his arms. She held him off gently and looked into his eyes. "Brian, I have to ask you something, and I need an absolutely honest answer." "Okay," he said, a concerned look creeping into his features. "You're about to do me, and that in my marital bed. My husband is ignorant of us so far, so we could back off and go back to our lives. You to Heather and the children, and me to Marcus and the twins. Are you sure you want me as much as I want you? Are you sure you are willing to do to Heather what I will be doing to Marcus when I serve him with divorce papers in a few months' time? Be sure, Brian. I love you, but I don't want this to turn out to be just you getting a piece of my butt and then saying sayonara. I don't know what I'd do if you did that to me," she said. "Kelsey, I love you more than my life. I am as desirous of you as you are of me. I have wanted you since the first time we met at the office. Later, our intimate lunches and dinners when Marcus was out of town were wonderful for me too. Little and not nearly often enough, but wonderful nonetheless. I swear to you, I love you, and you are far more to me than just a piece, as you call it. On that you may rely," he said. He took her in his arms, and she melded her body to his. The robe had slipped from her shoulders. She was now as naked as he was. He kissed her forehead, her ears, her neck, and finally her lips. He was gentle and slow, considerate of her needs. He led her to the bed and laid her down on it. He looked down at her. She began to give him a BJ. After several minutes, she looked up at him and said, "Now screw me." He screwed her hard. Once done, they collapsed together. The smell of sex and mating was all around them. "He can't do that for you," said the man. "No, he can't. He's too dinky," she said. "If he had what you have, you might not be here." He smiled. His conquest was complete. He knew without a doubt that she was his. They cuddled and slept the sleep of the sexually satisfied. It was 2 days later that Mr. Grant called. The cell number had been given. He had summoned the cucked spouse to his office. Marcus sat across from him now, having heard the basics. The PI had gotten what he needed sooner than anticipated. "Yes, there is an affair, and they apparently are in love. I'm sorry, Mr. Donovan, but it's all there in the package." "Thank you. It's disturbing to finally know, but I knew in my heart after that night at the bistro that this would be the result. I know what to do now." "Thank you again," I said. Out in my car, I cried. I let the tears flow without any attempt to restrain them. I would cry now for a little while, and then I would get down to business. I hadn't seen or heard the tapes yet. I wasn't sure I wanted to. I knew what they contained. The content was in the written report. The report was bad enough. But in the cold, descriptive sentences that Mr. Grant had given me, there was no tone of voice, no facial expression, no intensity. The written report had spared me all of that. The tapes would be far more cruel and destructive to my mind and soul. Betrayal was always bad. The worst. I drove immediately to my bank. I took half of all of the assets, depositing the proceeds in an untraceable offshore account ID already opened. I was taking no chances. I figured I might give her the house. I couldn't bring myself to live in it anyway, knowing how it had been desecrated. But the cash? She'd only end up getting half of what ID left in the account. So, of the original $400,000, 3/4 would be mine. I canceled our common credit cards. I retained only my company credit card. It would have to suffice for the present. My meeting with the lawyer that afternoon would be brief. I had already set the wheels in motion. I would give Sam, my good friend and longtime associate, the go-ahead to file the divorce papers and to have her served. Finally, I had to face the fact that I had to meet with my girls and let them decide what they wanted to do. This wasn't about them, but it would affect them greatly. If I held any bitterness toward my wife at all, it would be as a result of what her selfishness was going to do to my babies. I was angry at her for that. Very angry. But my greatest ire was focused on the man that had seduced my wife and cucked me. I actually hoped the a-hole didn't show, because if he did, I could not guarantee that I would let him be. At 10 a.m., a man with a briefcase walked into the offices of Weston Marketing and Associates and inquired after Mrs. Donovan. He was ushered into her office. There was a man with her, leaning over her desk, scanning some documents. "Mrs. Donovan," said the visitor. Then, looking over at the big man beside the desk, he smiled. "And I believe you are Mr. Weston, if I am not mistaken," said the man. "Yes, I am." "Good. It saves me a trip." He opened his briefcase and pulled out 2 manila envelopes. He glanced at the names on each and handed each of the parties theirs, respectively. "You are both served. You, Mrs. Donovan, for divorce. And you, Mr. Weston, for alienation of affection. Mr. Donovan asks that neither of you attempt to contact him. He has moved out of your house, Mrs. Donovan," he said. He handed each a card. "Sam Kellerman, attorney. Any contact should be through Mr. Kellerman's office." The man then turned and left. Kelsey Donovan was stunned. She almost fell into her chair. She paled. An involuntary tear dropped onto her blouse. It wasn't supposed to be this way. She had planned to make it as painless as possible for her husband. But he had gone and usurped her good intentions. Everything was a mess now. The girls. She had to get to the girls. Nothing else mattered for the moment. She stood and moved to go. She looked at her lover but said nothing. They'd talk later. Brian just stood there, also shocked and irresolute. Alienation of affection? What had he done but fallen in love? That it was with another man's wife didn't strike him as meaningful. Heather, my God, he thought. She'd divorce him immediately. The children. It was going to be messy. The 2 girls and their dad sat in the booth at Denny's. "Girls, I hate to have to tell you this, but I am leaving your mother." "We have problems," I said. "Big problems." Lisa started to cry. "You know, don't you, Dad?" "Huh?" I said. "You know about Mom and her boss," said Amanda, elaborating. "You girls know too?" I said. "We've seen the a-hole at our house at night," said Lisa. "Yes. We know. We want to stay with you, Dad. I don't want to be around that big fat a-hole. If I see him trying to kiss Mom, I think I'd try to kill him," said Amanda. "Wow," was all I could think to say. "You can stay with me, girls." "Of course. But I do not want you to cut yourselves off from your mother. I don't want to see her for a number of reasons, but you two need to." The twins nodded. "Here is my new address, and you have my cell. Get your stuff and come tonight if you wish. It's a 3-bedroom condo that I've leased. You'll each have your own room." "They're pretty nice, too," I said. "Girls, I want you to know that whatever you decide is fine with me. I want you with me, but I would never force you. If you change your mind, and then even if you change it again and again and again, I will understand and accommodate your wishes as best I can. I love you both with my whole heart and soul. None of this is your doing, but it is going to affect you. And for that, I am truly sorry." The 2 young women came around to me and hugged and kissed me. Tears were common all around. It was the next day at my work that the opening salvos in the divorce wars were fired. Brian Weston came storming into the yards of Drake Logistics and Engineering. He saw me with 2 women, apparently clerical workers, near an open receiving bay. "Hey, Donovan. You a-hole," said Brian. I saw the big man fast walking toward me. I set myself to avoid his rush. I'd been in too many situations not to realize what was coming. She was your wife, and you sicked a lawyer on her, you prick, he said as he lunged for me. I sidestepped him easily, and he crashed into the wall, swearing like a sailor. I'm going to tear you up. Your fancy karate isn't going to do it for you, shrimp. He snarled. Shrimp? Now I was going to have some fun. He lunged again, and I sidestepped him again. He fell to one knee. Maybe I hadn't lost as much foot speed as I thought. I decided to stop letting him slide. He got up and stood. He was a little more wary. I just stood there, arms loose and ready at my side. He came at me more deliberately. I bobbed under his wild haymaker. I fired 2 vicious cuts into his rib cage. I could hear his lungs deflate. He tried vainly to catch his breath. I walked slowly up to the gasping assailant and fired no less than a dozen short, flashing hooks into the side of his face and head. His eyes glazed over and he sort of melted to the ground. He was out. Out of the corner of my eye I saw her. Kelsey had been with him. But she didn't come to him. She ran. Well, why wouldn't she? She had to be afraid. Amanda and Lisa were retrieving their things when their mother came through the door. Thank God you girls are here, said Kelsey. Then she stopped. Her face suddenly became a mask of fear. She looked at the suitcases and full trash bags behind the couch. Girls, we'll be staying with Dad, Mom, said Amanda. Their mother fainted. After they had gotten her conscious and up onto the couch, the girls stood in front of their mom's seated form. Mom, we don't like your boss. Never did, said Lisa. But we hate him now. And we are very disappointed in you, Mom, said Amanda, taking her shot. Amanda and I don't want the family to break up. We know it's not up to us. But if you divorce Dad and marry the jerk, count us the hell out of your life. Kelsey was sobbing big time now and was totally incapable of coherent speech. The girls headed toward the door. Amanda stopped and turned. Mom, you're an a-hole. Get a grip and figure it out before it's too late. Then they were gone. Back to Marcus. I bought the condo, girls, so now we have a real home, I said. After the initial blow-up, things had calmed down, as they always inevitably must, and I settled into my new routine as a single parent. I made a point of seeing to it that the girls spoke to their mother face-to-face once a month. The divorce had been final in just under 6 months, and I heard from the girls that their mother had married the a-hole in Vegas within a week after the final decree. It hurt me to hear that, but I had expected it. The woman was in love, or so I'd heard her say on the tapes. The girls had softened their threat to not have anything to do with their mother again if she married, but they adamantly refused to have anything to do with him. This gratified me, though in point of fact it caused their mother no end of disappointment. Mr. Brian Weston had, of course, been kicked to the curb by his wife. She had assaulted him financially, and between him and his new wife they had to struggle to make ends meet. He also knew the horrible feeling of essentially losing all but minimal contact with his own children. It is said that one of the happiest days in a father's life is when he is able to give his daughter's hand to a just and honorable man in marriage. The twins were to be given in marriage, both of them in the same ceremony, to 2 brothers. Not twins. The following day, it had been 3 years since Kelsey and I divorced, and I had not seen or spoken to my ex in all of that time. I would see her tomorrow. The girls had said that she could even bring Brian if she wanted to escort her. But that was all. He would have no part in the wedding. Time does dull the pain, if not completely erase it. I saw her for the first time standing by the artificial arbor that had been set up for the special dinner Amanda and Lisa had planned for the evening. Their fiancés, James and Eric Wilson, were speaking to her. Kelsey was smiling. I looked around, but did not see Brian. I had had to promise the girls that I wouldn't pound the guy again like I did the last time. I knew that they had said what they said tongue-in-cheek, but the message was nonetheless a serious one. I had had to promise not to offend. The prospective grooms looked my way. I nodded. I was waiting for my friend Danny to show up. He was going to be the official photographer. I was surprised to see the pair each take an arm of my ex-wife and head my way. I looked around for a graceful exit. There was none. Sir, began James, our brides have given us a mission. They told us, in no uncertain terms, that we had to get you 2 to talk to each other. That's right, sir, said Eric. They said to remind you that this was their day or evening and they want it to be special. For the ones that are responsible for bringing them into this world. With that, the 2 men withdrew. I wasn't sure, but I thought that I heard them laugh as they retreated to safer territory. We stared at each other. I was the first to speak. How are you, Kelsey? Okay, Marcus. And you? Okay, I guess. Where's Brian? I asked, looking around. He's not here, she said. Oh, I didn't have anything to do with this, Marcus. The boys just came up and got me. I don't know why. I don't know why the girls are doing this. They know you. I don't hate you, Kelsey. I was hurt by what you did to me. But I never hated you. Oh, and you can tell your man he has nothing to fear from me anymore. I got it out of my system that one time and it's in the past as far as I'm concerned. You know, she said, I never had a clue just how tough you were until that day. I knew you had been a boxer and stuff. But well, I just had no idea. Thanks, I think, I said. It was her turn to smile. Today is a special day for our girls, I said. I think it would be nice if we sat together at the table. It would make them feel good, I think. Marcus, I think that is a wonderful idea. Marcus, since we'll be sitting together, yes, I think we should talk some, she said. I guess we should have had our conversation a long time ago. But time got away from me and, well, she nodded her understanding. That said, Kelsey, I think it should not be tonight. Not about the big stuff. This is kind of an unusual gathering. Aren't grooms supposed to stay away from their future wives the night before their weddings? I think we need to focus on the girls tonight. They'll call you in a few days and we'll have lunch or dinner or something, I said. You're right, of course, she said. At the dinner, I noticed the twins watching me, or was it the both of us, Kelsey and me? I saw them whisper to each other every few minutes while keeping an eye on our table, which was no more than 20 feet away from their own. The next morning, the brides looked wonderful. And the grooms looked pretty good too. The wedding went off smoothly. It should have. It had cost us a small fortune on the part of their father, I thought to myself. On the day of the wedding, Brian still had not shown. And Kelsey was once again paired with me. I noticed that she seemed to walk with a slight limp. And she was wearing a long-sleeved blouse, despite the hot weather. I began to feel that something was amiss. The wedding and the reception had turned out to be wonderful in some ways, but bittersweet in others. I would miss the girls. Their noise. Their problems. Their messy rooms. All of it. After the girls had slipped out of the reception and headed off on their honeymoons, Kelsey and I were left standing next to the bandstand, looking at each other. We were each aware of a new era beginning in our lives. It was an awkward moment. I turned to her. Kelsey, ow. She had a pained look to her. She looked up at me. Yes? Something wrong? I could see her fighting back tears. At least, I thought that's what I saw. We fought. He wouldn't come. It was a bad fight, she said. My mood darkened. He hit you, didn't he? I said, trying to control myself, but not doing a very good job of it. She just looked away. I'll kill the scumsucker, I said between gritted teeth. Her head snapped around and she said, no. I saw she was scared to death. Okay. I'm cool, I said. I made a mental note to not actually kill the scumsucker. Kelsey, we split up last night. That's why he lost it. We were never able to get around the loss of our families. His ex makes it difficult for him to see his own children. And ours hate him. He's not in a good place emotionally, she said. So, you get to help him out by being his punching bag? I said, not quite sneering. Marcus Donovan, you have to promise me you won't do anything foolish. This is my fault. All my fault. If I hadn't cheated 3 years ago, none of this would be happening. Marcus, promise me, she demanded. I won't kill him, I said. But he is going to get an earful from me if he's still in town when I go looking for him. And Kelsey, don't ask me for more than that. She nodded. I paced back and forth outside of the bar that I knew he was at. Some earlier regulars at the establishment eyed me. I was making up my mind if I should go in and talk to him or wait him out. I had inquired of a parking attendant at his place of work where he might go. The young man hadn't hesitated. The Greenfield Bar, said the young man. You can see it from here. It's just over there. He goes there a lot. They got great hamburgers, too. I thanked him and pressed a 20 into his palm. The day was hot. I finally decided to go inside. The place was cool and dim, but not dark. I could see easily. And what I saw was him, talking to one of the serving girls. I approached. The girl saw me. I guess the look on my face made her think of something else to do. She broke off her conversation with Brian and sashayed away from the bar. Brian was nonplussed. He turned to see what had interrupted his little get-together with the girl. What a way to ruin a perfectly fine day, said Brian, seeing me behind him. I'm here to have a few words with you, a-hole, I said. Then you'll be talking to yourself because I ain't listening, he said. That would be your choice? But you better find a way to hear me or you're going down, I said. You're right. If you come near Kelsey again, I'm going to be there. And you won't like it. If you call her on the phone, I'm going to find you. If you write her a note, I will hunt you down and make you eat it. She made me promise not to tear your cowardly butt up. But I won't be hearing her if there's a next time. Good day, Mr. Weston. I stalked out. I spent the next few days packing some things for a little vacation that I had planned. I would be spending some time alone. I couldn't get Kelsey out of my mind. I needed closure, and had almost called her. I had to think. I had promised her that we would talk. But for some reason, I just couldn't pick up the phone and dial her number. The betrayal of 3 years earlier still rankled. And yet, having seen her, what she had become, I had come to realize that I still had some feelings for her. All of my procrastination notwithstanding, fate was about to take matters out of my hands. The phone rang. I picked it up. It was Kelsey. We spoke for a few minutes. She was on her way up to see me. I had a feeling my daughters were behind all of this. I answered the knock on my condo door. She stood there, looking calm and composed. Come in, I said, finally finding my voice. Thank you, Marcus. I indicated that she should have a seat. She sat herself gingerly on the couch. I hear you talk to Brian. I didn't touch him, I said. I know. The bartender told me, she said. Your friend? I nodded. Marcus. 3 years ago, I thought I was in love with another man, Brian. I now know it was just a serious case of stupidity. A genius I clearly am not. You're saying it was stupidity? Not his enormous tool? I said, rubbing it in. I heard what you said about me on the tapes. She winced. Her voice trembled. You're a proud man, Marcus. I know my words hurt you. I beg your forgiveness for that. I truly do. I won't lie to you. He has a big tool. Hell, bigger than you, Marcus. You'd know I was lying if I said otherwise. I'm done with the lies. But his tool by itself wouldn't have been enough to pull me away from you or the girls. It was much more than that. And at the same time, much less. The truth is, I was bored. The thrill of the chase made me lose control. And I blundered. Marcus couldn't help himself. You said you loved him, he replied coldly. That was on the tapes too. I thought I did, she admitted. But I didn't. I know that now. As self-serving as it sounds. It does sound self-serving, Kelsey, he shot back. She sighed, a soft cry in her voice. For me, it wasn't just the cheating, as awful as that was. It wasn't even the fact that you heard me say I loved him. Or how you felt small when I talked about him. It was that I betrayed your trust. That's the hardest thing to get over. I need to be someone you can trust. Someone who's always on your side, not someone else's. I know, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I guess I can never convince you I'm trustworthy again. I really am, though. I know it. But I don't know how to prove it to you. Marcus stood still, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I met with you tonight because I wanted to hear what you'd say. I know the girls want us back together. Hell, sometimes I wish it too. But how can I be sure you won't get bored again? That you won't look for another big tool to keep you entertained? Kelsey stood by the window, her hands trembling as she wiped away a tear. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. Marcus, I'm not looking for excitement or distractions anymore. I just want happiness, real happiness. I need someone I can trust, and someone who trusts me in return. If you'll give me that chance, I swear I'll prove that I can be the woman you need. I won't mess this up again. I don't want your tears, Kelsey. I don't want your excuses. You had your chance. You threw it all away, Marcus said, his words harsh but final. The truth is, we can't go back. Not after everything. I'm done being the one to fix things. Now it's on you to handle your own life. Take responsibility for the mess you've made. Marcus's frustration boiled over, and he slammed his fist against the wall. The dull thud echoed in the room, making Kelsey jump. She rushed to him, her voice filled with concern. Marcus, what are you? Call the girls in here, Kelsey, he muttered, his back turned to her. She stood frozen, her brow furrowed. What? Why? What's going on? He took a deep breath, still facing the wall. I know they're with you tonight. They're your backup, aren't they? Her eyes widened in disbelief. How do you know that? Marcus turned to face her, his voice calm but firm. I have my sources. And it's not about them. I made a promise to James that I wouldn't let the girls know about the plans to get us back together. At that moment, the door opened and their daughters walked in. The atmosphere was thick with tension, but Marcus spoke up, his tone measured. Listen, I'm willing to be civil for your sake. For the girls. But I won't forget what happened. I can't forgive everything that's been done to me. The girls exchanged looks, sensing the weight of the situation. They knew their mother and father had tried to fix things. But they also knew the truth. They couldn't be together anymore. But at least, for the first time in a long while, there was a glimmer of hope that they could coexist peacefully. Marcus had made up his mind. He could forgive. But the past would never be erased. He had learned that lesson the hard way. One more mistake from Kelsey and he would walk away for good. No more second chances. Meanwhile, Kelsey had rented a small apartment close to the twins, hoping to rebuild her life. She had never stopped regretting her actions and the guilt weighed heavily on her. Her relationship with Marcus was broken beyond repair. And though they both tried to move forward, the scars of the past would remain. Brian, after marrying the woman he had been talking to at the bar, kept his distance from the family. He didn't want to get caught up in the drama anymore. Despite all the hurt and tension, there was a small flicker of hope. Amanda, their daughter, had just announced that she was pregnant. And in 7 months, they would all be grandparents. It wasn't the reconciliation Kelsey had once dreamed of. But it was a new chapter. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was the beginning of something better for their fractured family. Thanks for watching. Should Marcus have forgiven Kelsey? Or was he right to move on? Comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.